2017 has come and gone, and Divinity Original Sin 2 from Larian Studios has taken our Game of the Year award by a landslide. Players around the internet agree that it is hands down one of the best RPGs they've ever played, as it took the gaming world by storm, and for many players this was their first taste of Divinity. In this video, we want to take a look at ways Larian could improve Divinity Original Sin 2, or perhaps its sequel should there be one. It's hard to find a lot wrong here, but we'll try our best. Number 10, more elemental damage buffs. The first thing on our list we'd like to see changed is the addition of elemental damage buffs, fire, water, poison, earth, air, that either add much more elemental damage to your weapon attacks, or convert them to that damage type directly. Because of the way that physical and magic armor currently work with regard to crowd controlling effects, you want to deal a lot of damage of one type, not decent damage to both armors. If you could change your damage type to, let's say, water, albeit with some investment into Hydrosophist, it would open the door for much more playstyles and builds. Number 9, elemental damage weapons. Piggybacking off the above idea, wouldn't it be great if some melee weapons and bows had 100% elemental damage, or at the very least, a very high percentage? This would allow for more build diversity, as you could be a ranger that uses a fire crossbow, and who puts points into huntsman and pyrokinetic. This would be an easy change to make, and of course Larian could always make them unique items or craftable to make things a bit more interesting and to prevent the loot pools from being further randomized. Number 8, give Constitution another use. In the first Divinity Original Sin, Constitution played a bigger role by adding maximum AP you could acquire, and characters took damage quite regularly. In Divinity Original Sin 2, if you're taking damage to your health, then you're doing something wrong, and you'll have a tough time winning that encounter because of crowd control. Because of the way the armor system works in the game, the objective is to not take any vitality damage at all, so this stat becomes nearly useless. Adding something like 1% resistance to elemental damage per point would make this more useful, at least to tank builds. Another idea would be to add 1% magic armor or physical armor, or both, per point invested. Number 7, staves and wands need improvement. Anyone who has played a proper caster in Divinity Original Sin 2 will tell you that they almost never use their wand or staff for anything, except maybe Act 1 of the game. Once you gain a wider assortment of spells, these weapons become almost useless. Unless you are playing a very specific build like the Elemental Champion or some sort of Pyro Warrior build, you simply use whatever has the best bonuses. It would be great if there was a wand or staff category in abilities that increased your damage while wielding one, or something of this nature. Or perhaps even adding some talents that make using them more intriguing. Number 6, Necromancy needs an overhaul. While Necromancer is probably one of the most popular skill lines out there, and for good reason, it's just awesome and flexible, there are many skills in the line that are useless, or nearly so. I'm looking at you, Bloodsucker, Raining Blood, Infect, Living on the Edge, Death Wish, Last Rites, Silencing Stare, and Black Shroud. At first glance, some of these skills seem really good, and indeed my first build guide for the Death Knight remains my most popular one. However, most of these skills are based on the premise of missing health, which is very bad in Divinity Original Sin 2. Necromancer's biggest strength, besides being a physical damage option for a caster, is that it gives you health back when you attack, passively. But again, you shouldn't be losing any health to begin with, and for skills that aren't based on health, I literally can't think of a build that uses them. Number 5, healing undead needs to scale off of warfare. This one is oddly specific, I think. If you didn't know, healing undead deals physical damage to them and can even critically strike. The only ways to currently increase this damage is by increasing your critical multiplier and chance, and to put points into Hydrosophist. Warfare has no impact even though the damage is physical. The reason this is an issue is because you cannot increase healing with intelligence, so you will underperform if you use this build, which is a shame. If Warfare did affect damage to undead, this would be a seriously viable, albeit niche, build. Number 4, remove source points and balance source skills. One of the biggest issues with the game is that once you can use source points and gain access to source skills, not only does it get tedious to keep having to refill source points between encounters, but the game gets seriously easy. Bloodstorm, anyone? Not only should source points be removed, but these skills nerfed into something that isn't game-breaking. Maybe even make it so you can only slot 1 or 2 as well, much like the first game did. I'm sure many players will disagree with this one. However, source points can be used for nearly every fight in the game by resupplying between counters, so why bother? I'd much rather see a system where we have powerful skills that can be used once per encounter that doesn't require the need to teleport and click a bunch of times between fights. Number 3, we need more variety of runes. I absolutely love the addition of the rune system in Divinity Original Sin 2, but it hasn't exactly been done in the greatest of methods. For example, the best rune you can put into your necklace currently is the Fire Rune of Power, but it only adds intelligence. There is no variation of critical chance with strength or finesse, which is kind of silly. The best rune you can add to a physical damage weapon is currently the Masterwork Rune of Power, but it adds strength. There is no finesse variation, which is also kind of silly. If it were up to me, I'd minimally add 2 runes that did just that, but I would like to see even more runes that add even more types of bonuses, perhaps ones that affect skills. Number 2, fix grenades. Grenades in Divinity Original Sin were always useful and precious to me, and they made attacks viable for characters that sometimes had no other options. However, in Divinity Original Sin 2, they have become so ineffective that I don't think I used one my entire playthrough after testing a couple of cores. It's really a shame because there are some intriguing talents that allow for a grenader sort of build, but even taking all of them and trying to optimize damage with grenades, you literally cannot make it work, even on easier difficulties. I would love to see the damage of these buffs so that you can make elemental or physical grenader builds that focus on 1 or 2 types of grenades for best results. Number 1, Lone Wolf needs rebalancing. Anyone who has spent any amount of time as a Lone Wolf character in Divinity Original Sin 2 will tell you that the game just becomes way too easy. My understanding of Lone Wolf is that it has always served 2 functions, or is supposed to anyway. One is to allow players to play alone or with a companion or friend instead of a full party, which is a personal preference for some. 2 is to increase the difficulty of the game because you have less characters and so have less skill variety for the situation you are facing. Now, I could be completely wrong about number 2, but then playing Lone Wolf shouldn't make the game easier either. I hope this will be addressed at some point down the road because I love playing Lone Wolf. I just don't want to win every fight without taking any damage at all. Looking over the above list, which I must admit I started some time ago but just never got around to finishing until recently, it really feels like Larian tried to simplify Divinity's mechanics by reducing the number of AP players and AI have, but in doing so created other issues that were not caught. Sneaking, grenades, Lone Wolf, and source points are all issues that stem from the same basic issue. The action point pool is too small, preventing balancing from occurring of things that would fall below 1 AP or above 4 AP. If this pool was simply larger, you would have a wider variety of damage and effectiveness of skills because you'd have some that were 2 or 5 or 7, etc., meaning that you'd have more options and more flexibility and better balancing. Perhaps we'll see a return to the larger AP pool that we saw in the first game should a sequel be made. We'll just have to wait and see. All in all, Divinity Original Sin 2 was my favorite of 2017 of all the games I played. I made build after build guide because I was infatuated with the masterpiece that Larian had created. I expected great things after the first installment, a game that I sunk nearly 200 hours into and probably would have played more should time have presented itself, and I was not disappointed. There are very good reasons that Divinity Original Sin 2 took home our Game of the Year award, but I wanted to explore some of the things I thought would make the game even better. I hope you don't judge me too harshly for it. Thoughts on the list? What do you think could be improved? What would you like to see done differently? Post your thoughts in the comments below.